was.
Yeah.
And I was intentionally left off the committees to
That's very
determine the law.
unfortunate.
Yeah, determine
I'm
the
sorry.
laws.
I'm very sorry about
Well,
that. Yeah.
you know, I didn't think that was right, but I would have been opposed to all these non-objective rules. I don't mind objective rules because we can plan
Right.
with the city and work together with them.
And
But
if there was
it's non-objective,
yeah.
it leaves room for politics and favoritism, and that's what's happened. Certain amendments were approved who were in favor, and others weren't. So that's wrong.
And it's interesting that you just said who gets what, and because when that list of invalid COCs was printed in the Daily Star, only through another Freedom of Information law request did it come to the people's attention that half of the Common Council were also part of that list, which wasn't produced to the public immediately. So you're absolutely right. You know, we are dealing with a city that prefers to work based on politics, who knows who, and unfortunately favors. And that's got to change.
Right. I think it needs to change because, you know, we need to work for the best interest of everyone.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah. So moving on to the zoning ordinance, so what are your views on that? I know they're making a study right now to reduce it, I think, to 8 zones. Are we running short of time?
No, about 8 minutes.
Okay.
Okay, good. Do you have a view on what's in the plan?
Well, I was actually at the public hearing when the consulting firm that we're hiring right now, who's going over our zoning areas right now and what we're going to do as a community in the future.
Right.
And a lot of concern was misplaced. People think that zoning is just what businesses are on Main Street, and that's the important issue. At least that's what I got out of that meeting. And I spoke with the consulting firm director, and I just simply said, doesn't it make more sense to have clear definitions? Because definitions to me dictate results. Once you understand something, then only then can you move forward. And he said, absolutely. We spoke more in depth about this, and what the community doesn't seem to understand, or what's not coming across accurately, is the fact that if we do not have clear, sound legislation and definitions, then we're only going to continue in this downward spiral of lawsuits, litigation, and people being confused and displaced. So I think that our biggest issue in moving forward is being honest and having a direct line of communication with our property owners, with our renters, and saying this is the way it is. This is how you go about things, and just so everybody understands and can move forward as one.
So are you in favor of having 8 zones or having less?
I'm in favor of providing clear definitions first before anything else. That's what I'm trying to say if I'm not being clear right now. I'm in favor of actually reevaluating what we have as it is, figuring out how to make that better before we look elsewhere.
What other original or insights or proposals do you have that would improve landlord-tenant relationships here in the city and provide an atmosphere of growth?
Well, I mean, as I said from day one of this campaign and from my first public address, is that students do need to respect the community. They do need to understand that they have a role in the community, and they're not simply in limbo between the place they grew up and what they consider to be the real world after college. I think that we need to be a lot more proactive in how we respond to each other. Right now, we only meet between the students and year-round residents after there's an issue. For example, last spring, there was an issue with a faculty member who was interviewing for a job at that time, who was wrongly identified by a citizen as being the person who broke into their home and vandalized their possessions. It caused a great disturbance between the student population and the year-round residents, and actually it had a lot of the same ground that took place back in the blacklists in the early 90s, which was a horrible PR disaster for our community. But again, we only address it after the fact. We need to make sure that our city's police officers have the proper training for dealing with diverse groups as well as younger groups, which is the student population. But we also need to come together and say, listen, if we want to increase communication, what are we actually going to do? I would propose that we meet, a specific committee is formed between property owners of all types, doesn't matter how many homes you own, to be able to come in as they like, to have students come in as they like, and to have elected officials come in as well, and together in one forum, first start off with, well, what is everyone's concerns? Get that out in the air. Because once we understand each other, then only then can we work to fix it. By doing so, I think that we're going to create a healthy environment that promotes communication instead of closing off communication, saying I'm right, you're wrong. I think that we will see each other in a more positive perspective, a more positive light, because we'll be able to understand each other better. And I think from that type of committee that meets on a monthly basis or bi-monthly basis, then that's the grounds of moving forward and promoting a more tolerant, open-minded community that sees the needs of everybody, not just property owners, not just students, but everybody's rights and concerns met and addressed.
So, since you brought up the topic of communications, I think transparency is a major peg of your platform, right?
Yeah.
What steps would you take to make the city more transparent?
Well, there's a lot of small steps that you can take, first off. And in the first week, there's no reason why we can't immediately broadcast Common Council and committee meetings directly over the Internet. If you have an issue or are concerned with a particular issue that's being addressed at the Common Council or committee meeting, and you can't make it to City Hall, you should be able to see in the privacy of your own home or wherever you are if you have access to the Internet. That's an easy, practical step. It doesn't cost anything, and it's easy to implement. Another thing is there's the suggestion of weekly citywide mailings. Well, that's a waste of paper, it's expensive, and you see something from the city, most likely you're going to disregard it once you read that it's just an informal letter. I think that what's better in developing communication and more effective is to have actual weekly radio broadcasts from the mayor, from myself. 15, 20-minute broadcasts that simply talk about the state of the city as it is, what we're working towards that week, that month, and what our overall goals are, what crime issues are taking place, if any, what we need to do to protect ourselves, and any other events that are taking place in the community for people to attend. It's a great way for people to access their mayor, to find out what's going on in the community from all extents, all across the board, exactly what's going on in the community. And we can see the success that it's had from the president, from the governor, and working down. There's no reason why we can't implement that here as well. If there is a significant crime wave, as we recently saw in the 6th Ward with burglaries, well, it was nice that John Nader did put out a PSA, but it was a week after the fact. We need to do it immediately. I said at the debate we need to be a lot more proactive in taking the initiative to deal with these issues, or any issue, before they happen. And I think that by creating a very open, transparent government, that's what we're trying to implement.
Would you work? Yeah, okay. We have to wrap it up
Sure,
soon.
sure.
Yeah, it just brought up to my mind whether you wanted to make any changes to the charter or the way committee meetings are held, or a lot of times public debate is cut short.
Yeah.
Things of that kind. But
just not to cut you
yeah.
off, but I mean, overall, we work on this concept that the people need to meet their government. That cannot be. That's not effective, and that doesn't address anybody's concerns. We really need to work on a base where the government meets the people, not vice versa. Where the mayor isn't just knocking on doors during election season, but is knocking on the doors throughout the entire term. To keep efficiency in the Common Council, I'm proposing the fact that we need in each ward a community citizen, some sort of group that is based on citizens within each ward, so that we meet on a monthly basis and I find out directly whether or not our Common Council, whether or not the aldermen are actually performing at all. Because it's one thing to go to an alderman and say, are you doing your job? Most likely they're going to say yes. It's another thing to talk to the people that they're working for and really find out the results.
Okay.
Plus it just brings the people directly in.
Okay. If you were bring together everything we discussed today, what is your overall vision?
Overall vision for Oneonta? A community that brings opportunity to its people, economically, socially, and politically. A community that promotes tolerance and open-mindedness, and most of all, a community that respects its members. That's basic. It's simple, and unfortunately, that's not what we have today.
Okay. Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for coming down.
Thank you very much.
To speak to the public here.
Absolutely.